Just as I walked into Gregg Williams' press conference the other day, the Browns head coach had not quite got up to the podium. I was just kind of checking the internet, seeing what goes on. There it was, a guy named John DeFilippo, who actually had been an assistant coach with the Browns a few years ago. John DeFilippo then went to Philadelphia, became a hot offensive coordinator, quarterback coach. Then he just got a chance to be offensive coordinator in Minnesota. In fact, early this season, people were saying John DeFilippo should be considered by the Browns and other teams as the next hot coordinator, maybe one of these guys to be head coach. Well, anyway, right before Gregg Williams steps up there, John DeFilippo just got fired by the Minnesota Vikings as offensive coordinator. So I guess you kind of scratch him off the list. So what's the point of that? Now, there's Gregg Williams. He sits down. Record is 3-2 since he took over for Hugh Jackson. Now, this is not saying that the Browns absolutely positively must hire Gregg Williams. But I have to wonder, unless you're really sold on one of these coordinator types, absolutely positively sold on that guy, assuming the Browns continue to play well with Gregg Williams, I'm more in the Williams camp than the latest John DeFilippo, the flavor of the month among coordinators. Williams also says something else that's a little interesting to me. He said he goes on these tangents, and he was talking about high school football coaches, and he said, I was a high school football coach. Here you are trying to teach people to play football. They can't even spell football. They don't know how to put the pads on. And he's right. So I asked him, I said, Gregg, when you were at coaching high school in Missouri, did you believe you'd one day be in the NFL? Because he went to a small college, it's now called Truman College, and he was at a small school called Belton High School. He said, yeah, he did. He said, actually, in his mind, he had it laid out. High school, college, NFL, all of this. Remember, no big pedigree here for him. And he just talked a little bit about how he actually told some people back then at his old hometown and there that this is what he wanted. And of course, they looked at him sideways. So what am I saying here? What's the point? I mean, it's a nice story about Gregg Williams. We know he has his ups and downs. He was fired after 3 years as a coach with Buffalo. He also got implicated in the Bountygate scandal, and that led to him being suspended for a year, where players were being paid to knock quarterbacks out of game. I don't think anybody ever thought after that Gregg Williams ended up being a head coach. But on the same day John DeFilippo, the hot commodity, was fired, there's Gregg Williams up there, and he's talking about the Browns, talking about the Denver game, telling some stories about being a high school coach. Sometimes Gregg wanders off into his areas of always kind of the ego on command. He claims he got like 500 texts on Father's Day from former players. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. But I will say this, when Williams talks about football, I find him the most interesting coach they've had here talking about football at press conferences since Eric Mangini, who I learned a lot of football from listening. Isn't so much to knock those other two guys, but these two, I think, at least in terms of how they explain the game and that, are special. And also, I have to admit, hey, when you're winning, you think we're all so desperate to have any coach around here who looks like he had a clue at how to win. We get caught up in that and say, well, we've got to keep Gregg Williams. I'm not there yet. But I'll tell you, I'm much farther along the road of keeping Gregg Williams than I am about a guy who's maybe never really been a head coach anywhere else.